Hi great people, you are welcome back to Physique Fashion House channel. My name is Fola. Today I'll be teaching you how I make this beautiful drawstring skirt. Let's get started. Now to make this our drape skirt with a drawstring, I have with me here the pattern. This is the pattern I'll be using for the back. We are going to cut out the back first. What I have here with me, we have our waistline. This is the waistline, which will be my starting point. We have our hip line of 7 inches. We are making use of 7 inches as our hip line because 2 inches band will still be added to this pattern. Then our skirt is 3/4. So the length of our skirt is 30 inches plus the waistband is going to be 32 inches. So, and I have my hem allowance of 1.5 inches. So I draw this line. This will be my starting point for the back cut. So now the waist measurement we are working with is 25. I divide 25 by 4. It gives me 6/4. So on the waistline, I'm going to measure 6/4. But before then, I'll first of all come in with half an inch to shape my back. So the next thing I'll be doing is to get my waist. So before I get my waist measurement, the first thing I will do is to get my nipple to determine the that line at this back. The bust span we are working with is 7 inches. I divide it by 2, it gives me 3.5. So I mark 3.5 here. 3.5. So I mark down 4.5 and I roll it down. I get it, let me get it here, 3.5. I connect it with straight ruler. Then I come to the left and to the right with half an inch. So this 4.5 I mark down. I'll connect it on this line. So this is my that. The next thing I do is I measure my waist. The waist measurements I am working with, as I told you, is 25. I divide it by 4. It gives me 6/4, 6.25. I measure it here, 6/4. I return this 1 inch dart. So this half an inch here, I return it. The half an inch I come in with, I return it. Then this half an inch, I connect it to my hip, just this way. I slantly connect it to my hip. The next thing is I come to my hip. I measure my hip. The hip measurement we are working with is 39. I divide it by 4. It gives me 9.75. That's 9/3. I measure it on my hip. For the down part of my skirt, what I'll do here is that I deduct my hip measurement. I deduct 2 inches from my hip measurement. I'm having 9/3 here. When I deduct 2 inches, I have 7/3. So I measure 7/3 here. One thing I want you to note is that for this kind of skirt we are making, so it's better you use stretchy material. The next thing I will do is to connect it from my waist. I connect to the hip. And on my hip, sure that you step down with 2 inches. Let it connect to that 2 inches. The same thing you are having here, 9/3. Have it in that 2 inches you come down. So this is the way it will be before you now finally connect to the hem line. Yeah. So this is our back cut. When we are cutting out our fabric, seam allowance will be added. So the next thing we want to do now is to cut it out. So let me fold in my hem line. Because I want to snatch this my dart, I won't cut the seam allowance with this pattern. I will be adding my seam allowance when I get to my fabric. I'm going to cut out this my starting point because for the back of this our skirt, we are not having zipper. This is the center back, side back. So the next thing I want to do now is to close this dart. All we will be doing now is to add half an inch for the side seam. This upper part have an inch. So this center back is going to be on fold when we are cutting. So this is the pattern for the back cut. Let's move on to the pattern for the front cut. Now this is the front pattern of our drawstring skirt. This is where you have a lot of work to do. So the first thing you have to do when you are drafting your front pattern is that ensure that your pattern is on fold. The same thing we draw at the back has been drawn here, except that we don't shape anything at the center front as we did in the center back. We first of all get our bust span line, which is 7 divided by 2, 3.5. We get it at the hem line. We connect it with a straight ruler. We come to the left and to the right with half an inch on that line and come down with 4 inches to connect our darts. Thereafter, we get our waist measurement of 25 inches divided by 4, that give us 6.25, which is here. Then we return this darts allowance, which is 1 inch. We come to the hip line. We measure our hip. The hip we are working with is 39. We divide it by 4. It gives us 9.75, 9 3/4. We get it on the hip line. We come to the hem line. We deduct 2 inches from the hip measurement, which is 9 3/4. When you deduct 2 inches from 9 3/4, it gives us 7 3/4. That's what we have here. And we connected it from the hem line. We connect it with straight ruler to this end. On the hip line, we step down with 2 inches. We use our curve to connect it this way. From the waist measurement, we connect straight to that 2 inches that we step down with. So that is what we have done so far in this front cut. So the next thing we want to do now is to move straight to our drape part of this project. So now to drape our skirt, what we have to do is we first of all open this pattern that is already on fold. You open it this way, and you can see that everything I draw here has been drawn at the back as well. Let's assume this is the right side. By the time it gets to my body, this is going to be by my left. Our string want to be by the left of our skirt. So this is where we want to work on now. The first thing I do on this line is to determine the height of my slit, and to achieve that, I'm going to measure down from this hip line 6 inches. From the hip, you can measure down just 5 inches. It depends on how open you want your lap to be. Even you can even come as high as coming to 2 inches from your hip. That depends on you. But for this project, I'll be coming down from my hip with 6 inches. The next thing I will do is that on this slit line, which is my bust span line, I come to this side with 1 inch. This I'm doing now is optional. You might leave yours straight, but for this project, I will want to come in here with 1 inch. So that's another dart that I will be removing here. So it helps the laps to be obvious a bit more. The next thing I will do now is to cut this out. Before I continue with this, I will fold back this my pattern even to cut out my normal skirt before we proceed in this, which we are going to cut out this. So we move on with the cutting of this slit. So I'm going to cut out this dart. The entire dart will be cut out instead of closing it. We have the opportunity to cut out the darts in this case. The dart of this side will be closed up. So now the next thing we want to do is to go into our drape part. Now to move straight to our drape part, now what we do is that from this point, this starting point of my slit, I mark one inch. I mark it up here. I do the same thing here. I do the same thing by the side, by both sides. Then I connect. The next thing I will do is to begin to open my drape. I will be opening from this bust span line. I will be opening from here to this end, from here to note this end. That the only place that hem allowance has been included is the down part. So by the side, no seam allowance. So it is when we are cutting out our fabric that the seam allowance will be included. And our drape is not going to be in pleat form, it's going to be in gather form, like ruffle. Now, this is it. We have opened our drape. The next thing is to place a fresh paper under this and open it. Now, I've gone ahead to grab a fresh paper and place one of my pattern on it. So we are doing slash and spread method now. So what we do is that you can go like 1 inch interval. I'll be moving up like a 1 inch and hold it down. Holding it down with sellotape, just as full as you want your ruffle to be. If you have opportunity, you can give it like 1.5 to 2 inches interval. This is it. So the next thing we want to do now is to cut it out. Note that seam allowance will be added to the fabric when you are cutting out your fabric. The same way this one is done, I'm going to do the second side the same way. This is it. I've done this slash and spread for the second side, so I just want to cut it out now. This is it. Now I've indicated the side of my pattern. This is the side for this one. This is the slit part that we are going to join together. So by the time you cut out your fabric, this is the way you are going to cut out your fabric. Half an inch will be added up here as a joining allowance to your waistband. But for the slit part and the side of your skirt, 1 inch will be added. I will go ahead and use this to cut out my fabric now, and I will come and show you before I go ahead and begin to join it together. Now this is my back pattern. I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric. I later use just half an inch as my side seam allowance because the material is stretchy, so you are good to use half of an inch or 1 inch. So, and this is the center back. It's not open, so you can see it's open by the side, but it's not open at the center back. So this is for the back cut. Half an inch is added to the upper region here. Now this is the front cut. Now for the front cut, you are going to cut out one piece. You are not going to place it on fold. You cut out one piece of this, you cut out one piece of this, and note that this is the slit area where the drawstring will be applied. I mean here. This is the side of our skirt. I use half an inch as seam allowance for the side, but where the slit will be formed, 1 inch is used as a seam allowance there. So, and Another thing is that take note of the side. By the time you are cutting out, take note of the side your slit will be. For this project, our slit is going to be by the left. So that is why this one you are seeing here is the right side of my fabric. This is the wrong side of my fabric. So this is the right side, this is the wrong side of my fabric. By the time I join here together to draw my drawstring, this will remain by my left side. So you have to take note of that when you are cutting out your fabric. I'm going to notch where my slit is starting. This is it. I notch it. This is the notching. I match the notching. So I'm going to join my fabric together from this very place to the upper part of my skirt. So that is where I will join it together with the 1 inch, with my 1 inch seam allowance. That is what I will use and join it together here. After joining it, I will now turn it, top stitch it to create the tunnel for my drawstring. So that's the first thing I'm going to do for this front cut. I've cut out this. You just cut out like 1.25 to 1.5 wide, and just cut like 40 to 50 inches. And I cut out 2 of these. This is what I will use as the rope. I will take it to the machine and turn it this way and sew it down. This will be used for my drawstring. Those are the things I want to go and do. Then thereafter, I join the front and back together. I will come and show you the end result. Now, this is it. What I've done so far now is that I've gone ahead from the notching of my slit point. I sew down this area where my rope will be inserted for my drawstring. Here we have it. It's after joining it together, then I stitch it down to create the tunnel for my rope. And from this notching, I sew down my slit. Here, this is the wrong side of my fabric. Then thereafter, the lacing is inserted to it, and after inserting the lacing, I stitch it here to secure it. So before I now go ahead and join the waistband, I cut out 5 inches wide by the length of my waist, adding the seam allowance to it. Then I inserted the 2 inches elastic so as to give it strength in this waist region. And invisible zipper is attached by the side. If you don't want to add a zipper to your skirt, you are good to use the same measurement you use for your hip. Use it at the waist region so that you just insert your elastic. So, but it might not be as fitted as this one looks. You know, you have some ruffles here. So that is if you don't want to use the zipper. But you can see the invisible zipper is fixed by the side, is not pronouncing at all. So next thing is for me to draw this place to the level. Just arrange it for your gathers to form. This is it. Then I leave the loophole here for my rope to come out here. So that's where the rope is being drawn. So you just tie it this way. So what I will do now is to put it on the mannequin so that it will speak better on the mannequin. I'm very sure you have enjoyed this video. Like this video, drop your comments on the comment section. Share this video with your friends and family, and if you have not subscribed till now, do well to subscribe today. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.